Welcome back, folks, and seeing as this is my first video in Spooktober with ghoulies and ghosts abound. Yeah, well, I was really trying to have that video come out in September. I really tried. And if you think about it, since it's an LGBT video that's talking about, bisexuality in Point Break, probably should have come out in June. Well, I guess I can say I'm as good a producer as Judd Apatow. As I was saying, since this is my first video in spooky season officially, I thought that I would go back to, the horror world. And unlike last year, going back to old classics that I love, I decided to do something a bit more contemporary. Let's talk the social thriller genre. The social thriller is a subgenre of the horror film, and it uses the tropes of the horror genre to highlight oppression in society. It's a subgenre that's been around for a while now, but, it's been sparing. You got some elements of it in Misery, The Shining, Rosemary's Baby, and Stepford Wives. But it really came to prominence in Jordan Peele's 2017 film, Get Out. That film deftly weaved a tale that worked within the tropes of the horror genre while also being a pointed critique at American race relations. In the 5 years since the success of Get Out, an explosion of mid-budget horror films that had themes of critiquing society were released. And there was an even higher peak of the subgenre with 2019's Best Picture Parasite. However, I am not equipped to really delve deeply into the roots of South Korean cinema. And seeing as Squid Game came out last year, it's pretty clear that social commentary is big in that part of the world. So today I will only be highlighting American social thrillers, specifically those that came out in the wake of Jordan Peele's success. But for this essay, I really don't want to just talk about my enjoyment of these films because, let's be real, me saying that I like something is very subjective, I like this film. See? Pointless conversation. I would prefer to critique them in three distinct categories. You've got the craft that it took to make the film, the specific critique, and how clear it is to the audience, and how the film in general relates to horror cinema of the past, because I love when a film carries a torch for those that came before it. And with my first entry talking about 2019's Ready or Not, I might be stretching the definition of social thriller as it's less of a strict horror film as it is a biting satire black comedy, but as I've already talked about when it comes to satire, critiquing society is kind of its thing, so it works. The film was written by Guy Busick and R. Christopher Murphy, and directed by a duo that goes by the name Radio Silence. The film stars Samara Weaving as Grace, a woman who came from hard times but is now marrying into this extremely wealthy family. And when I say extremely wealthy, I mean old money. These guys are blue bloods. Not like the show Blue Bloods with Tom Selleck. It's, you know what I mean. Jesus Christ, why am I ad-libbing? And this family has a kooky tradition, as all old money families do, which is once in a while, and it seems from the movie it once every generation, they all come together as a family to kill the one that is marrying into them in a very high-stakes game of hide and seek. Ready or Not was such a breath of fresh air when I went to go see it back in 2019, and in revisiting it for this essay, it still holds up, really cementing itself as a modern classic when it comes to the horror thriller genre. And you can tell from the first scene, well, actually second because there's a prologue, that this film's script is tight. In the one scene that happens before the title card appears on screen, we set up the central character relationships between Grace and Alex. We set up her feelings of inadequacy when it comes to this family. We get her want spelled out directly to us, wanting to be accepted into the family of the man that she loves. And we get the inciting incident, even though we don't really know it yet, where she makes the choice to go through with the wedding. She doesn't know the stakes, but it is a clear decision that sets up the rest of the film. This is fantastic. And the film is a brisk hour and 35 minutes. There is zero fat on this thing. It's tight, it's lean, it's nice. And Grace has a fantastic character arc, which we will get to later, but just to say here, it is well crafted and it's nice. The filmmakers bring a lot to the film to add the tension in specific moments. And they don't pull their punches when they get the chance.
Mr. Ladomas, I just saw her run.
When it comes to the clarity of the concept that the social thriller in question is talking about, it's pretty obvious with this one, isn't it? Rich people are terrifying and want to kill you. The film starts with the idea that these rich people don't care about anyone unless they are one of them, and marrying into the family doesn't always change that. But they're all fake smiles and niceties until you're hiding in a dumbwaiter as they arm up waiting to sacrifice you to Satan. The film goes to great lengths to highlight that the inhumanity of the upper class is deeply rooted. There is one instance where the children are playing this version of hide and seek, yelling kill, 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 and no one seems to bat an eye apart from Daniel, Alex's brother played by Adam Brody. And people yell at him for telling them to knock it off. And also, it highlights that even the spouses of the Les Dumas children, those that didn't necessarily come from extreme wealth and privilege, or at least didn't grow up with this murder pact being a thing, are as invested and even more fanatical than most members of the family. Daniel's wife, Charity, who would rather die than give up her life of privilege that she married into, and Emily's husband, Fitch, who has a really fun line about never flying commercial and wanting to only charter planes for his introductory line, are clear examples of how easy it is for individuals to sell their souls, metaphorically in real life and literally when it comes to the case of this film, to have certain luxuries, and emphasizes that extreme wealth corrupts completely. To be more specific about what this film is trying to say about extreme wealth and what it does to a family, we need to talk about the brothers Daniel and Alex. Daniel is the older brother to the husband, Alex, played by Mark O'Brien. Daniel feels trapped by his family and is resigned to the fact that this hunt has to take place. He doesn't want to partake in it. He's despondent and is drinking constantly throughout the film, but he doesn't take an active role to go against his family, more going against his family in a passive way until the third act, when he decides that Grace deserves to live and his family should get whatever's coming to them, even if he doesn't believe the whole mystical mumbo-jumbo of it. And Alex, he spends the first 2 acts actively trying to help Grace or handcuffed to a bed so that he doesn't help Grace. Which, yeah, good husband move. Fuck your family, dude. They're fucking crazy. But in the third act, when he realizes that Grace, after going through this traumatic ordeal, will probably not get back together with him after this, he resigns himself to being the good son of the family. She's in here! And is willing to sacrifice his new wife, showing that his morality, and more so the general morality of the wealthy, it's fickle if there's no benefit to him, and especially if there's even a detriment to them. And finally, when the light of dawn shines through and nothing seems to be happening, the family is still willing to kill Grace to hide their murder secret because, no, it's not going to save them from dying mysteriously because of some pact with Satan, but it will stop them from going to jail because they have the wealth to cover this up. The rich don't care about the rationale. They just want those who are not one of them dead, according to this movie. And this leads to one of the greatest horror film endings of all time. And I, like Grace, am here for it. Ready or Not is absolutely carrying a torch passed to it from horror classics of yesteryear, specifically when it comes to the final girl trope. When it comes to final girls, Probably a video I should do later. If you want a really brief example of the horror tropes and specifically the final girl, go watch Cabin in the Woods. But the final girl trope comes from the heyday of slasher films in the 1980s. And it is what it sounds like. The sole survivor in a slasher film that is almost always a girl. So from Laurie Strode to Ripley to Sidney Prescott, decades of horror film survivors have been put to the silver screen, and Grace finds herself among their esteemed company. With her torn up bridal dress, Converse shoes, the bandolier across her torso, and the elephant gun in her hands, Grace goes from scream queen victim to total badass willing to punch a child who shoots her in the hand. Her character journey has her going from Laurie Strode to Ash Williams, hand mutilations and all. Which is pretty great because the first thing I saw Samara Weaving ever in was Ash vs. the Evil Dead.
How does it feel?
Groovy.
Well, yeah. Duh. And unlike most other horror film survivors, she not only gets to survive the events, but she also gets to relish the impending doom of the family that spent the last, let's say, 5 to 6.5 hours trying to murder her. So I give this movie, on my social thriller ranking, a grade of...
You don't suck, sweetheart.
Here.
And now we come to Antebellum, written and directed by Gerard Bush and Christopher Renz, and came out in 2020. Antebellum really wanted to follow up with Get Out's success. Literally all the marketing in the movie has posters that say from the producer of Get Out. And having a horror movie, a genre movie that is clearly influenced with the same sorts of racial issues, that makes sense to tie your movie to Get Out. As Get Out was the most successful genre film to have race politics in it in this century, I'll say. The film stars Janelle Monáe as Eden, who is a slave in antebellum times on a plantation, but with a big twist, is actually Veronica, a sociologist, and living in contemporary America. And she has been kidnapped and forced to be a slave on this reenactment of plantation times, as an extreme right-wing faction of America is making this incredibly immersive Ren-Fair evil twin to help bring back slavery into the culture. So the real good thing happening with this film is the twist that slavery is happening with modern times. Which is unfortunate that this was a key element that was used in the trailers while the film was being marketed. So no, I do not feel bad about spoiling this aspect of the film. But even if you didn't happen upon a trailer of this film before you went to go see it, there's nice touches that hint to this twist. Hairstyles, modern accessories, the fact that they speak in a contemporary American vernacular. Well, not the white people, they are full-on cosplaying this shit. Look, this concept is intriguing and comes with a powerful message, but in its execution, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard to watch. Antebellum's entire first act is just scene after scene emphasizing the dehumanization and torment of these black characters. Without a central character being active, it's hard to latch onto it. Eden is just passively watching or living through these terrible experiences. And it's excruciating. Look, one can argue that this is well done, and it is clear that this is what the filmmakers intended, as it is 35 minutes of the audience being forced to live in this existence. But it's kind of overkill. Well, yeah, obviously, there's just so much physical and sexual and psychological violence, which, again, I get is the point. It's saying the same thing over and over and over and over again. When we finally get to the contemporary setting, we get a bunch of dog whistles, such as Articulate, Legacy Media, and Triggered, which clearly shows who in society this film is making as the antagonists. We do get a cathartic third act, don't get me wrong, but by that point, the audience has been beaten and berated by all of the terrible things that have unfolded on screen that it's less of a yes and more of a yay. I do feel like I need to highlight that every performance in this film is very well done. It must have been difficult for all of these actors to truly commit to such demanding roles. And for better or worse, they all do. And the final line that the main antagonist, the person who owns this right-wing LARP session compound, his line of
"We're nowhere and everywhere"
kind of hits home. So the big issue with this film is not that the commentary isn't clear, it's just that it's not great. This is the most, if you liked Get Out, you should watch this movie ever to be made. But what made Get Out work is the specificity of its target. Who were the antagonists of Get Out? What? No. Well, yes, broadly white people and white supremacy specifically. But really, think about it. Who are the antagonists of Get Out? They're not sheet-wearing, cousin-loving, racial slur spouting white people. No, they're liberal. They're the type to bask with pride that Jesse Owens won his race in the Olympics that took place in Nazi Germany. They're the type who claim they don't see color. They're the type of people who say that they would have voted for Obama for a third term. They're the quote-unquote good ones. They are specifically a Martin Luther King quote come to life. And if you're a conservative in my audience, thanks, I guess. Like and subscribe and all that. But no, it's not the one you're thinking of because that's the only one that you know. Get Out is using Martin Luther King's comments on white moderates to turn them into horror villains. He said that these white moderates were more devoted to order than justice. They prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. They constantly say, I agree in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action. They paternalistically feel that they can set a timetable for another man's freedom. They live by the myth of time, and they constantly advise to wait until a more convenient season. Through the villain's constant representation of the passive form of uncomfortable racism, Get Out makes clear that this mindset is just as nefarious to our society and people as those that carried tiki torches in Charlottesville. So what does Antebellum do? It makes their bad guys just white nationalists who want to reimpose not just Jim Crow, but slavery. And don't get me wrong, a film premise that's just Handmaid's Tale, but more about recreating the antebellum South, it's getting more apt a concept for what the mainstream Republican Party is doing. What with actual Republican Senator Mike Braun from Indiana going on record saying that interracial marriage should go back to the states.
So you would be okay with the Supreme Court leaving the question of interracial marriage to the states?
Yes, I think that that's something that...
A poll 11 years ago saying that that sort of thing should be illegal in Mississippi. And countless highly paid and highly viewed right-wing talking heads complaining about black culture as if black culture isn't just American culture. And look, I get it. Fascism is bad. This channel does not stand fascists, and if you are a fascist, please do not like or subscribe. I do not want you patronizing my little fun pocket of the internet. But if you're making a film whose conceit is, what if Civil War reenacting, but also LARPing slavery with actual kidnapped people? That sounds a bit tone deaf. The only reason why I'm not having a stronger take where I'm actively criticizing it rather than just saying it might have been a misstep is that the film seems to have been conceived from a genuine place, with a genuine message in mind, and not a formally upcoming, now cancelled, series on HBO from the Game of Thrones guys about what if the Confederacy won the war. Yeah, that was the thing they were gonna make, after Game of Thrones. And while the target of the rage is well placed, and those that are the target deserve to be portrayed as these evil pieces of human shit, it doesn't really have anything to say that we haven't seen in other slave movies before. What good comes from a movie where a pregnant woman miscarries because she's been beaten and kicked in the stomach? It's a profound image, and it sets a strong tone for the film. It's about 20 minutes into the movie, after there were countless acts of sexual and physical violence already happening in the film. But it is very powerful. But on the whole, the film seems exploitative and not insensitive, but maybe tone deaf. In the context of genre films, Antebellum is unique. It really harkens back to movies about American slavery, rather than any other genre fare. Think less Django Unchained, more 12 Years a Slave. But even though this film has a very strong message and is worth saying, do we need any more movies about black people being victimized and in pain? I don't know who enjoys this movie. The people who agree with the message, they don't want to see this. It sucks. Genuinely is just difficult to watch. And the people who are the target of the thing, they don't want to see this because they don't think that they're that bad. So yeah, for Antebellum, I give it the social thriller ranking of...
Boo! Boo!
And finally, we're getting to Don't Worry, Darling. And this is a first on my channel. I'm going to be talking about a movie that, at time of recording at least, is still in theaters. So I'm going to try to be as selective as I can when discussing this movie. I don't want to spoil it, although it seems like some people felt like it was fine to spoil the big twist that comes at the end of the movie a week after the film was released. What a failed screenwriter. You're a very failed screenwriter. And as I am a much nicer content creator on the internet, I will show you a screenshot of my Letterboxd review, and then try to talk as broadly about the film as possible, mostly getting into stuff that's seen in the trailers, so that if you want, you can still watch the film and enjoy it. But if you've watched my videos, you know me, so maybe, proceed with caution, watch the movie and come back if you really want to see Don't Worry, Darling. It's been out for a while, so you had your chance. Don't Worry, Darling was written by Katie Cyberman, from a script that was originally written, but not credited, by Carrie and Shane Van Dyke. And the film was directed by Olivia Wilde. It is a film that depicts an idyllic 1950s style American suburban dream, where all the men go off to work for a mysterious company that does mysterious things, and the women cook, clean, pop out kids, and drink in this suburban fantasy. Or is it a nightmare? Ooh! Okay, fine, I'm being a little sarcastic. But this film is actually interesting. I don't want to get into all the behind-the-scenes drama that had the internet going crazy leading up to this film's release. But there is a lot of fun sequences that tell the story of someone who feels trapped in this white picket existence. Specifically only mentioning things that happen in the trailer. There's a cooking scene where she's cracking an egg and there's nothing inside. There is her cleaning a glass window that slowly closes in on her and suffocates her. And there's a creepy ballet class. But let's be honest with ourselves. This is, with a tip of a cap to the best MCU TV show ever made, this is essentially She Get Out. A young woman trapped in this surface-level happy existence that hides a nefarious underbelly that speaks to social problems and anti-feminism. Florence Pugh is brilliant in this movie. She's brilliant in everything, and she absolutely breaks her back, carrying this entire movie on her shoulders. Chris Pine is interesting, but underused, and Harry Styles is there. Honestly, Harry Styles' presence in this movie is a perfect example of an above-average movie being hindered by one single performance. Because, yeah, Harry Styles is not an actor. And it's so weird that the camera seems to just linger on him, even in scenes that it doesn't make sense that it lingers on him. It's like the director just wants to watch him exist. I can't fathom why that could be. But okay, if we're gonna talk about the social commentary of Don't Worry Darling, it's pretty clear that the bad guys are anti-feminists. It's the men are breadwinners and women are meant to be in the kitchen mentality. And like, the setting is pastiche 1950s. It's the peak time of, hey doll, why don't you smile more while I have a martini lunch and do my business things in business. In the 1950s, women were 20 years away from getting a credit card in their own name without a man having to co-sign for it. And 40 years away from being able to criminally charge their husbands of marital sex crimes. So setting your anti-feminist movie in this time and place, or at least the idea of this time and place, really emphasizes the messaging of this film, which is good. So if I'm going to have to keep talking about the social criticism of Don't Worry Darling, I guess I'm just gonna have to talk about, fuck me, Jordan Peterson. This video is just gonna end up being my most disliked video. I take pot shots at Republicans, at Ben Shapiro, and now I've gone and said Jordan Peterson. Why am I even doing this, getting into these hot waters? Just, why did I choose this topic? That was months ago, and no. Okay. So, according to Olivia Wilde, Chris Pine's character of Frank is broadly supposed to be a representation of Jordan Peterson, or people like him, who, as she puts it, is a pseudo-intellectual hero of the incel community. Which, I mean, fair to her, she's right. And he's obviously a fair target of criticism in your movies, as is anyone who has such a large following while being equally contentious. But this comment feels like it's just surface level criticism of Jordan Peterson. The only thing that Frank and Peterson seem to have in common are a following of disaffected young men who have, let's say let's say hostile views of women, feminism, and gender equality, to say the very least. I know why she said Jordan Peterson, because he is probably the most high profile of these people on the internet who talk shit about feminism, women in the workplace, all that stuff. He has some pretty terrible views. I do not recommend watching his videos. But the vague platitudes that Frank spouts are so generic that it could be anything from Peterson to Warren Jeffs to fucking Charlie Manson. It could be anyone who's a piece of shit. And since I'm burning my reputation with half the internet anyways, let's talk about incels, also known as involuntarily celibate. This is an internet subculture that came out of forums where dudes who can't get laid and are mad at women talk to each other and just constantly reaffirm their idea that women suck. They also reaffirm their ideas that they are entitled sex, but you know, anytime you hear shit, people complaining about Chad or Stacy, like that's straight out of these fucking forums. It's sniveling shitholes like these whose rhetoric creates people like Elliot Rodger, who, by the way, is still perceived as a hero in these subcultures. So, incels. Great place to put your ire in your movie about anti-feminism. Because, yeah, fuck them. But you know who absolutely does not present themselves as an incel? Harry Styles. The dude exudes sex. They try to make him unappealing at some points, but like physically unappealing, but they really don't do enough. It's almost like the movie was written and then handed to Harry Styles' PR person, who only signed off on the movie if Harry's character was perceived in the best light possible of a person who... It's not good for the main antagonist of your hero to be portrayed in as good of a light as possible up until the end. It's just, if I can talk to Harry for a bit. Harry Styles. Mr. Styles. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I am very sorry that I may have said some negative things about you. Please, my intention was not meant to bring you down. I want to give you constructive criticism. If you want to be an actor, you gotta be all in, my dude. Like, The Rock can phone it in. He can be The Rock in every movie he's in. He's got a larger-than-life persona. He's got fantastic comedic timing. And he makes like 4 movies a year, so if one sucks, you got another one coming up next quarter. You don't have to worry about it. You? I know you want to sell concert tickets, but if you're gonna be a bad guy, you can't just wear a stupid haircut and say like 3 objectively terrible things, but still want to be seen as sympathetic. You just can't. See, the other thing that's wrong with the movie, maybe not as big as having one actor be just tonally wrong for the part that they were supposed to play, is that this movie doesn't distinguish itself enough from other films that are about similar anti-feminist topics. Like, this is kind of the Stepford Wives, which has been done twice already. And I'm not saying that this movie is literally the Stepford Wives. There is a bunch of new shit, a bunch of modern stuff brought into it, but it just doesn't have anything new to say that is unique or profound. And that's a shame. So for that, I give Don't Worry Darling, on this social thriller rating that I have created, a score of...
It feels like a movie. It feels like a real, like, you know, go to the theater film movie.
So that is the legacy of Get Out in American cinema. Social thrillers are great and can be profound. They make you jump, they make you scream, they make you tense, but also, when the movie's over, in the best examples, they make you think. They tap into fears that certain members of society hold and enhance them to make a powerful statement to an audience that may not be really wanting to watch a TED Talk or read a sociology book. Sometimes they can be on the nose, sometimes they can be subtle, but they always make you take notice, even in bad examples. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. I am exhausted. This was way too much. I really bit off more than I could chew, but I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed, you know, crafting this weird thing that, you know, might have pissed off the right people on the internet. Like, share, subscribe, please. And actually, if you could, maybe comment your favorite social thriller that's been made, and I'll try to do a sort of 1-sentence review like I did with Don't Worry Darling, you know, this. Or, you know, don't. See if I care. You know, go suck an egg. What are you still doing here? The video's over. Go home. Close out of the video. Go to the next one. Or the next video of mine. I don't care. Just leave me out of it.